Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey. Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets. I got a special treat for you here today, folks. It's an AI treat. And speaking of AI, my guest is one of our longtime clients and a bit of a legend. Her name is Caroline Hinton. She's an AI strategist, a coach enabler, and former Fortune 500 executive with leadership experience at Microsoft, Google, PwC, and top-tier ERP firms. She's also a two-time CRN Power 50 Woman of the Channel. She teaches AI, but there's no better person to introduce Caroline than Caroline herself. So Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Karl. It's great to be here.
You bet. So AI is Caroline's thing. So we're going to delve deep into it. What do you think?
I think it's a great topic, and I'm excited to delve into it and talk about my experience with incorporating it into the coaching that I do and how really PAS is such an asset in the process.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's start at the top. In your opinion, what's really happening with AI in the coaching world right now? How would you answer that?
Yeah, I'd say two overarching themes kind of as I get started. One is AI is already in the room. And the other is that it's a tool, not a threat, because, there's a lot of different viewpoints about AI and what the opportunity is or what opportunity it takes away. And really the best analogy that I've found is this. AI is the newest member of every executive's leadership team, the savvy executives. And just like a brilliant but blunt analyst, it's already sending briefing notes, whether we're involved or not. And really, there's three macro shifts that are happening that prove it. First was just the stealth adoption. When you think back to when ChatGPT was released and the speed with which new subscribers, a 2025 Boston Consulting Survey showed that 68% of knowledge workers tap some type of generative AI tool at least weekly, but fewer than half of them are telling their bosses. So the CEO who says we don't use AI yet is already getting budgets drafted by ChatGPT in finance, right? So that's the first.
Yeah.
The second is this decision cycle compression. So you think about pre-AI, a VP might spend 2 weeks crafting a board paper, send it to us for polish, then defend it in person. Now they can just paste that outline into Claude, click critique my logic, and book a 30-minute meeting to explore kind of the emotional subcontext. So we've moved from really co-author to strategic confident because AI took the keyboard work off the table. And really the last is this idea of a democratized simulation. Leaders used to role play tough conversations with us once a quarter. Now they can test it in the generative AI tools because they all have advanced voice assistants. So, they at 11 p.m., they can walk into a real meeting calmer because they've had the chance to practice with AI. One of my founder clients admitted that he's used ChatGPT to play impatient investor the night before every board call for the past 6 months. And so really, what does that mean for us? Two things. First, we have to quit thinking of AI as optional, as an add-on tech, and it's really foundational context like email or video chat. Really, the opportunity for us is to reposition ourselves from the source of every answer to, helping it all make sense. Like the AI drafts, we decode, challenge, and, help our clients humanize it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So how, like basically what you're saying, if you're not an early adopter, if you're not leading, you're behind. You're not an early adopter. The chance of becoming the vinyl record is pretty good. So get on
Yeah.
it. Get on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, our clients are going to look to us to help them make sense of it. I mean, and as business coaches, we're really in the best position to help them understand where it can fit in their business and the difference that it can make.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, so let's go like, how are business coaches using AI to save time, or say to serve clients at a higher level or more effectively?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so tons of efficiency, which I think drives deeper relationships. So the coaches who are adopting AI typically really see two big waves of benefits. And the first wave is just pure efficiency, hours back in your week. Like my personal time triage stack looks like this. I can put in, I've got, some prompts that I've written that say, here's everything on my plate this week, the meetings, the other commitments that I have. And it can help me organize, it can help me prepare. One of the things too, just super simple, is when I think about the calls that I'm on, trying to take notes, trying to listen, the ability for the AI to come back with very insightful notes. A lot of times I'll just take the raw transcript of a file and drop it in, and the generative AI can help kind of map out the follow up from the call, very comprehensive for the client. What used to be an hour or two of follow up from a workshop or a strategy call, becomes literally, 10 to 15 minutes of admin, with 3 mouse clicks. And then
Yeah.
really the second area is qualitative depth. Because you think about um, some of the what I'll call grunt work that's associated with working with clients. I've been able to repurpose that into higher value touch points. So, I can send clients a quick video mid-cycle, you know, 2 minutes of live encouragement. They feel supported between sessions. But here's where PAS really earns its keep, I think, especially as we talk about qualitative depth. Because before AI, the financial diagnostics, I mean, they were very time consuming. I mean, it was really Excel gymnastics, margin math, what if scenarios. And with the profit acceleration software, I key in 5 numbers on a discovery call and boom, there's a 12-month roadmap with 40 profit levers ranked by impact. And that single shift trimmed, I mean, also beyond making it much easier to sell a coaching engagement, it trimmed the onboarding, from 8 consulting hours to one interactive screen share. And the clients love that we spend the rest of the time, talking vision and not spreadsheets.
Yeah. Well, I always say that, well, I don't always say that, people much smarter than I say basically the smartest people in the world build the biggest things, Gates, Bezos, Zuckerberg, etc., brilliant individuals. And AI can add like 20 points to your IQ. So hopefully for those listening, that's highly, highly motivational. So folks, get on it. Get on it.
I'll give
Um,
you one. I'll give you one
yeah,
example too that's certainly relevant to
yeah,
business coaches. I had an opportunity come at me not too long ago, and it was in an industry where I didn't have a lot of depth. Uh, and I wanted to, and I knew with AI that I could fill in the gaps, and it wasn't completely out of my orbit, but it wasn't my strongest industry. And so I used deep research to research the industry, to research the local industry. So, it was a US opportunity. So the whole country, I whittled it down to my state. I did some deep research on how my prospective client went to market. So I put all that
yeah,
together, put it in a notebook LM, created a custom podcast that told me exactly how business coaching companies might work with this client and add value. I mean, the
Wow.
preparation, and it was 2 hours, and I was able to create an extremely custom presentation. I mean, all the way down to sample demos that I could show using AI with synthetic data that the AI created. I mean, it was a home run, and it just took a few hours, and it's something I wouldn't have been able to do effectively without it.
Yeah, I love it. There we go, folks. So there's a way. 5 minutes of preparation can be absolutely magic for a coaching call. What you're describing there, obviously, it's a little bit more than 5 minutes. That's a couple hours of work, but bingo, bango, bongo, bringing the value. So speaking of bringing the value, like, what are some of the ways AI can help a business coach um, show more measurable value, or maybe more specifically, like a return on investment on their coaching? How would you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the coaching industry's Achilles heel has always been it feels great, but does it pay? And I think that AI helps to fix that credibility gap really on two fronts, qualitative and quantitative. Because, on the qualitative side, the large language models spot shifts in sentiment or mindset that we may sense anecdotally but can't prove. So you can load 6 months of transcripts into, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and generate a heat map of confidence language. And so, when a CTO saw her self-talk move from 42% negative to 18%, she finally believed
Wow.
that the internal work was sticking. And I do that after sales presentations too. I mean, I load it back in, and I ask specifically for it to gauge the sentiment of the meeting based on the dialogue in the meeting. And on the
Right.
qualitative side, I'll go back to profit acceleration software again. It really turns that fuzzy upside into CFO friendly numbers. So in a first meeting, or before that first meeting through a questionnaire, I'll ask for that baseline revenue, gross margin, traffic, close rate, and then PAS can run the rules engine over the 40 growth levers. And so I come in, with the precise potential profit lift over the next 12 months. And then every month we just plug in the real results and we watch the dashboard update. Really, because a lot of companies, I had a SaaS founder that went from coaching as overhead to coaching as my highest ROI vendor when he saw the live tracker showing, the cumulative return on the investment.
Wow. Love it. Love it. Love it. So maybe going in a different direction. Um, like what do I call what ethical guardrails do coaches need to have in place when using artificial intelligence, when using AI and the tools?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really big topic, Carl. I mean, because in some instances it becomes there's risk that companies, when they're adopting AI, need to traverse, and that's where an AI policy is so important. But whenever technology accelerates beyond policy, trust really becomes the battlefield. And so, this whole idea of transparency is non-negotiable. I really frame AI ethics in 3 C's: consent, containment, and clarity. And so consent means explicit, not implied permission. And
Yep.
so my engagement letter now contains a single bolded line. Some analyses will use secure AI tools. All data is anonymized and reviewed by the coach. Clients initial it, but you want to be sure that as you start to incorporate AI more into your business, that you've covered that with your client. And then really containment addresses data boundaries. And I keep 2 buckets: public safe text and private sensitive text. And so anything financial or personnel related stays inside the closed systems or on-prem GPT models, because you can also host this locally. And then for public models, I just strip the names, the locations, vendor IDs, before running those prompts. And and then another just practical, if you use Chat GPT, the temporary chat as well is an option, where it's not going to store that data. And really just the last clarity, it just means explainability. So if I show a client an AI generated insight, I'll also show the prompt that produced it and my rationale for trusting the output. I mean, and this is so critical. And I learned this lesson the hard way. You always want to be working with source data to the extent that you can, because AI models can make things up,
Yeah.
and I've had to go
Yeah.
back and say,
Yeah.
hey, can you cite the source? And then the AI is like, oh, hey, sorry, I don't see the source.
Yeah.
Do you want me to change my answer? Well, yes, I do. And so, you just, AI is a brilliant asset, but you want to have some guardrails around how you use it. And you also want to, you want to position that with your clients. You want to add that consent line to your contracts. You
Yeah.
want
I
to
love it.
build a find replace macro that clears the names before you paste, research that you're doing on a specific client.
Yeah.
And you may want to keep even an audit log just of, the prompts, the dates, the output, and these tiny steps really produce immeasurable trust payoff.
Yeah, security is, people don't realize security is, there's two ways that I see it going. There's personalization and then there's security. And those two things, that's kind of the needle mover. That's the direction. That's where AI is going. It's going to become significantly more personalized, and it's going to become significantly more, security is going to become more and more of an issue, like you're describing. And then so they're going to tighten it up, tighten it up, tighten it up. So very good. I love it. Coaches, hope you're paying attention. Um, okay, so what about, we got a brand new, somebody hasn't even started coaching yet, or they're brand new to coaching. And, like many, they're looking for ways to leverage AI. Like, what skills or habits would you recommend for them to focus on first while they're still in the sandbox?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, one thing, I would think of AI fluency like learning a new sport. Like you need a grip and practice routine. Grip is prompt craft, and routine is just that disciplined loop in terms of how you're using it. There are lots of free classes on YouTube around advanced prompting, that are very good, and simple prompting. Even, like ChatGPT recently started an academy. It's I think it's academy.openai.com. Google has, quite a few free training options, but the more that you can learn about prompting, the better. And the other thing I'll say is, no one knows how to prompt the AI better than the AI itself, because you got
Yeah,
so many people out there selling packs of prompts, and those are really good, but the models are changing quickly. And so the way, for example, the way that you in ChatGPT, the way that you prompted 4.0 is different than the way that you would prompt 3.0 in some of the reasoning models. And so um, but understanding how to architect a prompt, and even, learning how to effectively ask the AI to help, are super useful. And I mean, when I think about a pilot loop, it really, you just want to try, measure, and iterate. Like, choose one workflow. Like for example, just session summaries after a coaching session. You can run a 30-day trial, baseline the time you spend now, and then switch to using an AI tool to document the action items, the insights, the follow up with the client, because all that can be automatically scheduled, and keep what pays and kill what doesn't. I mean, because for me, it's been a series of trial and error. I mean, but the possibilities are so good. I mean, another example is I had I had a client, small business, really a solopreneur, with a few different contractors that helped. And she was spending it wasn't sustainable, the schedule that she was doing. And so we ended up we scheduled a 4-hour block of time, and we went through all of her initiatives, everything that she was doing. We were able to put in, things about her and how she ticked. And it came back with, which was the goal of that session with her. It came back with how she needed to restructure the way that she worked, if she was going to get to success, because what she was doing wasn't going to get her there. Because there are strategies that PAS lays out for us, but the generative AI brings a whole other dimension where we can really incorporate all of that together to help individuals shift as well.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. So as I'm listening, and on behalf of everybody listening, like you said a minute ago, things are moving fast. By the way, I love the analogy of professional sport, or thinking of a sport. You got to learn, right? So again, folks, be gentle with yourself. But on behalf of the listeners, there's a few listening and they're already getting a little bit overwhelmed, right? So
Yeah.
how should a coach help them think through all of these coaching tools, and how can they avoid overwhelm, and kind of, again, they're in the sandbox and they're thinking about it as a sport. How do they learn to throw the ball, and how do they learn the basics? Could you guide me through that?
Yeah. Yes, because shiny object syndrome is real. And
Yeah.
so, right, I'll use a 3-step filter, and I'll call it bottleneck, anchor, and layer. Because one of the things that I ran into when I first started using AI a year ago was the amount of information that I could get it was incredible. But what I learned was, hey, just because I can get all of that information doesn't mean that it's useful, because I ended up kind of burying myself.
Yeah.
And then the other thought process always that's overarching is the AI right now is the worst that it's ever going to be. And that's true every day as it gets
Yeah.
better. But like when we think about bottleneck, like audit last year's calendar and revenue, so where do you lose either the most time or the most deals? Because that's really your pain point. And then like when we think about anchor tool, choose one platform to obliterate that pain. So if you're only closing 30% of discovery calls because prospects want ROI proof, PAS is the perfect anchor. It produces, the live profit forecast in minutes. I mean, you can even incorporate the transcripts of your PAS sessions, for feedback on how to improve that.
Yeah.
Right. And if prep takes forever, you can anchor with the, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, because it has such a huge context window for everything that's going into that PAS session. And then just layer slowly. I mean, so try something, like, for instance, I mean, I loaded in all my calendar. There's some really nice prompts just to kind of find where I'm wasting time, or where things that I enjoy doing the least. And it has come up with some great ways for me to improve that workflow. I try to bring the thought process in. Here's my process. Here's my deliverable. What can the AI do by itself? What can I delegate to a less expensive resource, potentially using AI? And then what are the things that I need to keep myself? And that's been very effective.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So I'm going to go in another direction again. And somebody's listening and they're nervous about, becoming irrelevant, right? So with so much changing, and like you said, the pace, AI is never going to be worse. It's never going to be worse than it is today. And then it's never going to be worse than it is tomorrow. Again, it's just rapidly improving. So how can coaches use AI to stay relevant, or maybe to, differentiate themselves? What would you say to that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, I mean, differentiation in 2025 is, it's like a 3-layer French pastry, right? AI precision, storytelling glue, and Karl, you talk about that so much, and human depth. It's not listening, because I mean, it's easy to get caught up in, because I do listen to YouTube, and there's a handful of people that are every week, they're talking about, oh my God, this is going to change your life, is to stay away from that. And stick with, layer one AI precision. So you use tools that uncover kind of the hard what. So you think about, PAS for profit levers, Claude or Gemini for mindset shifts, Google Trends for market signals, and you can arrive with insight that nobody else can generate on the fly. I mean, so there's so much information available, and one of AI's greatest strengths is really throw that all into a pot, and what you can pull out of it is extremely insightful, differentiated, tailored to your audience, what you know about them, and then that next layer, kind of the storytelling glue. Because even if the data is awesome, if you don't have a compelling narrative, that the leadership team or the owner that you're selling to can rally behind, data speaks to the CFO, but the story speaks to the soul. And so, like
Nice.
when PAS shows a 50K upside and a 1% price lift, I frame that as earning the right to invest in team well-being. Suddenly finance and HR will, nod in unison, because everybody's got different levers. And then just the last one around human depth, because there's a lot of people that believe that AI removes humanity. I actually think that AI makes our humanity more important than ever. And so, delivering with empathy, accountability, psychological safety, like that no algorithm can replicate. I might run a leadership hot seat, practice empathetic listening, or mediate a tension moment, because AI can't do that. I mean, there are, at the end of the day, even with all this technology, none of us rise above basic human. And that ability to connect at a human level, to make a difference, to be heard, to influence, all of those things are absolutely critical. But now you've got the much more information, valuable information, to build into that process.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Well done. And really what you said at the end is, look, understand psycho, for the last 100 years, some of the best advice you could ever get is understand human psychology. So again, understand human psychology at a really high level, and then literate with AI, and take the 20 free IQ points, and you can put yourself in a pretty dangerous position to be able to be a pretty dangerous business coach out there. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, the opportunity is, I mean, I don't think business coaches have had certainly not in my lifetime. I mean, this presents the single greatest opportunity to differentiate and add even more value. I mean, I was in a corporate job for a whole lot of years, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And this really has been such a difference maker in terms of, the level of confidence that I'm able to bring, because I'm still basic me, but understanding how to use AI effectively, in essence, gives me a superwoman cape that I just didn't have access to before, because I can get so much more work done more quickly, more personalized, more tailored to the client. And so, I mean, and then with PAS providing the numbers, it's really a great combination.
I love it. By the way, when she says PAS, she means profit acceleration software, which you've also
Yes,
said a
thank
couple of
you.
times. So,
Thank
but
you.
just so they
Yeah.
know. Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. I was going to say something and I forget what I was going to say. Oh, just like rather than be fearful of it, you need to see it as your superpower. Right? Like again, I always say I got an 11-year-old daughter. I always tell her like fear and excitement is pretty much the exact same thing. It's just a different way of looking at it. Right?
Yeah,
Like
I
so
heard it. The
again,
difference is a deep breath.
yeah. So like, I'm stealing that. My daughter's going to hear that within the next 25 minutes. So there you
Awesome.
go. Deep. She's actually she's going away. Why that's very relevant. We literally talking today and drive her to school, and she's going to the Dominican Republic with their class, and she's very nervous. You know, like she's never had a sleepover, and you know she not that we're like helicopter parents on steroids, but so bottom line, she's never had a sleepover. So going to the Dominican Republic with her class and not mommy and daddy, you can imagine she's a wee bit nervous, so she's scared. And I tell her,
Oh,
baby,
yeah, I can
scared or
imagine.
excited,
Yes.
it's one or the other. So I'm going to tell her you're one deep breath away from excited versus scared. So there you go. Well done. Well done. Okay. Well, Caroline, I asked you to deliver and you most certainly did that. We appreciate your magic. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It was my pleasure.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.